Hello everyone, today we're taking a look at the HGLRC Talon. Went with a different hat tonight. This is a Project Mockingbird. Many of you longtime veterans will know Patrick J. Clark, his project, Project Mockingbird. It's basically fancy PID tunes, or really good PID tunes, with beta flight. If you're looking for information on whoops, specifically for Project Mockingbird, look them up on Facebook. You might also be able to find some postings on RC groups. The Talon features 1303.5 5500 kV motors. It's 4S on an XT30. The all-in-one flight controller is only accessible by the USB port right up here, and you do need to take the battery strap out in order to be able to gain access to that, and that is the Scepter 15 amp all-in-one flight controller. It comes in two varieties. I have the DJI 03 Air Unit variety. It also comes in analog, and on their homepage I see some pictures for some fancy color of frames, kind of a peach, purple, green, and a blue, but I don't see how we can order those, so maybe those pages will be coming down later. On the motors are 51 millimeter, essentially 2-inch, Jim Fan 5-bladed props, and it has a little bit of a different sound to it, which we'll get to here. The camera seems to be a little bit of a friction fit. It kind of looks like a screw is right there, but when I put the flashlight on it, I don't think that is a screw. I just think it's like a notch for the camera holes to center on. So I just moved the camera with my fingers, like so. But you really can't get a whole lot of camera angle. So in my faster flight, I kind of maxed it out about, it's about there is the max. And then in the slower flight is about there. So not a whole lot of camera angle change in the flight footage you'll see today. It does have these two rubberized small battery mats, and you can see this sticker here. It comes with stickers in various locations indicating where the LED lights would be for your ExpressRS receiver, for the O3 VTX, prop rotation, things of that nature, which are nice to have. The external HD mount, I flew with this mounted all the time, not necessarily always with the camera, but this mount was on all the time. That is 3D printed. The antenna holding our T-style antenna for ExpressRS or TBS Crossfire, which is an option, is also 3D print. And then holding the DJI antenna, that's a 3D print as well. These screws appear to just hold the two halves of the shells together. We've got kind of a bottom layer, which is this piece, and then we've got a top layer, which is the prop protection. We do have landing feet down here. Obviously, I didn't have any troubles with landing and breaking any of these off. I noticed these are a little bit more flexible, a little bit more giving, and they're attached to the top half of this plastic shell. These are more stiff and robust. Motor wires are good shape, and the shell has kind of a little guide or a little area that the motor wires have to go through. No need for any wire tape or anything like that to hold the wires in place. I think if you do get one, you would be wise to zip tie this down to either this arm or this arm, because if you were to have a battery ejection, yeah, it's always one of those things I suggest. Tie this down, give yourself a fighting chance that it doesn't pull on your all-in-one ESC. Battery does sit in sideways. It's toilet tanked, as I like to say. It comes with an extra wiring harness, which I believe this would be for another receiver. So you get one without a receiver. I presume you get this wiring harness for that purpose. Get an extra small battery strap. Get a USB-C connection because it is USB-C connect to the flight controller. It does come with the screw for mounting the external HD camera. When you mount the mount, it does come with 3 of its own screws, so you end up with 2 spares when this is in place. Comes with a safe flight card and 1 sheet of stickers. They're little guys, but looks like there's 6 of them. And motor post to motor post looks like I'm getting about 105 millimeters. Carbon fiber looks to be 2 millimeters thick. The Talon weighs 148 grams. I did fly it on these 3 different batteries. 2 of them are 850 milliamp, but they're all 4S. With the 650, it weighs 217.55 grams. With the G&B 850, it weighs 235.39 grams. With the Beta FPV Lava 850, it weighs 244 grams. The Quad and the Flywoo Naked GoPro 9, it weighs 198 grams. And with the little 650 battery, we come in over 250 grams if we include that Naked GoPro. We're going to start this adventure with 2 mistakes. One is, I hit that tree. Very first flight. What am I, like a minute into that flight? And I also forgot to pull the plastic off the lens. You know, that little thin piece of plastic they use to cover up glass and plastics that, make it look nice. And I forgot to peel that off. You can probably tell as we're flying in. Sounds a little wonky now. Yeah, a prop got chewed up and I got some debris stuck in there, but that plastic is still on the lens too. So after a prop change and pulling that debris out of there, as well as pulling the plastic off the O3 camera, now we're into a real flight. This one, the main thing that caught me out, or that surprised me a little bit, is one, our weather data. 63 degrees, It looks much nicer than that, but it was actually kind of cool as far as this time of year. But the wind is 12 miles an hour. But I think because we now have trees that have full leaves on them, or mostly full leaves on them, a lot of that wind's getting cut down. So when we're down low, especially below the house line, that wind isn't really hitting the quad very much. But within this flight, I get up above the house and up above that tree as I do one of the couple of different descents that I do, because I think the descents are the most important part that we need to see. Yeah, I bumped another branch there too. The descents are the most important thing for, I think, that I need to show in these sorts of quads and the reviews, because sometimes they don't descend very well. Sometimes they'll descend great. In this particular case, when it comes to those sort of what I think of cinematic descents, this one handled it very well. As far as the wind, I thought it also handled it very well. And shortly we'll get up above the house and you'll get to see the tree moving. At least the leaves will be able to see the tree moving. And so we can see some of that wind and that we're up in it. And I think the video stayed very, very stable. There we go. We get up above that tree. You can see the limbs kind of moving around. Again, that's 12 miles an hour. At some level, weather data is 12 miles an hour. Whether we're getting all of that even up there at the tree line, I don't know. But I always like to report that stuff, especially with these type of quads. The more wind that they can handle successfully, the better, right? So it gives you more flying opportunities, whether you're actually trying to get a shot or you're just casually out flying. I did think the PID tune was pretty good. It tracked well. It felt, the thing, and after I went to bed one night and I was thinking about this quad, it felt, and it's a weird term, I think, it felt grounded. It felt connected, but grounded kept being the term as I was trying to fall asleep that I kept thinking of when it came to flying this quad. It felt like it was in control, especially in this flat sort of cinematic style of flight. By the way, this particular flight is on the 650 milliamp G&B battery, and it goes on for 5 minutes on an 850. The Beta FPV batteries did a little bit better than the G&B batteries. That might be because the Beta FPV batteries just have fewer runs on them, but you'll get about 7.5 minutes on an 850, I suspect, depending upon the quality of the battery and the health of the battery. Later on, when I show the flight with the GoPro, I fly that with the 650 as well, and that flies for about, we get near 4 minutes. 340, 355, somewhere around there is what you're going to get in flight time on the 650, and then you get about a minute more with the 850. In our faster flight that will be coming up yet again, I fly only the 650 because I always like to lower the battery weight for the more aggressive flight. Again, not much camera angle on this one, and that comes in right around 3 minutes. It was pretty rare I got much over 3 minutes or below. Like 2:53, I think, was one particular flight that I saw when I was reviewing footage, was the lowest flight time on a 650. I don't think we need to watch all of this, so let's jump into the GoPro footage. We're going to jump into the GoPro footage, again 650 with my favorite little pass between the backyard berm to keep water from draining across the yard and the fence. That's my Star Wars pod racer sort of feeling that I like to get. Didn't get especially low that time, but it's one of my favorite things to do even when I'm flying flat and I'm not flying especially fast. It gives you that sense of speed when you get close to stuff, even though you're just going straight. That's something I enjoy. With the GoPro on the front, you can definitely tell that you've got something big and flat on the front. I noticed it, and in flight, it's just, especially when you have winds. On this day, the winds were 13 miles an hour. When you have those winds and you have this big flat surface, you're gonna notice it. Of course, when I get real low to the ground, I don't really notice it so much. But when I get up, say 8 feet or so off the ground, that was when I started to notice it. It doesn't come out in the video or the recorded video. It's just a matter of how much you have to move the sticks in order to get the quad to respond in a particular direction. Mainly pitch, because you do have this big flat square hanging off the front end. But it's nice that we've got a 2-incher that does come with that mount, so if you were to want to get GoPro footage rather than DJI 3 camera footage, you have that as a possibility. I should mention, because we've already watched a good portion of this, that the flight audio you're hearing is from a secondary camera. It's technically a cell phone, and it's just sitting on the table in front of me. I blend that in post. That's not something that natively comes, but I think it kind of brings the flight to life a little bit, and I've been doing it for so long. I don't think I could bear to watch like a silent flight. I know we've had a smattering of those over the years where I've I maybe lost my audio recording or something like that. But I think in general, that's something that I would need in especially my own videos in order to be able to enjoy them and you kind of get the full experience of what FPV is, to be able to hear the surroundings, whether it's neighbors mowing or birds or animals or the quad, and how the sound it makes as it goes through the air. I think all those things are just kind of bring the videos to life. So that's why I've continued to do it. But we're going to make this last descent over the top of this big tree over here by the side of the house. And I thought it descends pretty well. And, again, the thing that stuck out in the flat flying for me was how smooth the video footage is. Of course, this is GoPro. It does have, what's it called? Hyperflow. It's kind of the gyro stabilization that GoPros have built in. So that is on this particular quad. Now let's move on to my favorite part, which is the faster flight testing. Okay, faster flight. So I've maximized the camera angle. You probably can't tell because there's just not a whole lot of camera angle change that you can make. But I think in this particular case of this video, these dives are the big thing that you're going to want to look at, especially as we get about halfway into the flight. Like that first kind of punch out over the house did fine. But later on, when we get about halfway or really closer to 2/3 into the flight, it doesn't handle those sorts of dive scenarios so well. So if you're interested in something like this because it's provides some safety with the prop protection, yeah, it can acro, it can do flips and rolls, it can do whatever those things are that it do over the trees. We've got a little bit of shake there, but we do this again later, so it may have been a technique issue with me there where I didn't come off the throttle quickly enough as I got down to 0 and turn the nose down. That's one of the tricky things when you have more prop blades that could be more sensitive to you actually getting to 0 throttle when you're changing direction like that, when you're going from a nose up to a nose down position. But we do that again later on in this flight, so we get to see that. But as far as doing the basic maneuvers that I tend to do, it doesn't really have much fling. You have to power it forward. You may have noticed it when I kind of did I don't know what that is. It's over there in the corner of the yard where I kind of do a slow roll with the nose down a little bit. That it didn't end up in the spot that most of the quads end up in. This is my NASCAR pass as I go around I guess it wouldn't be NASCAR because NASCAR's all left turns and that was an all right turn. Reverse NASCAR turn? I don't know. But so we're going to do several of those punch outs, and you may want to go back and look at them because that's where the flight deficiency on this particular one is when you're going from the nose up to the nose down position. It just doesn't handle that very well. And as we get closer to a critical moment in the flight, you're going to see where it really doesn't handle it very well. Yep, y'all washed out and it crashed into the pool cover. Skidded off the concrete right on the pool cover, but we're going to flip it back over and take back off. So that wasn't a terrible violent crash. I was trying to pull out of it, jam the throttle. I think I jammed the throttle. I should have if I didn't. But we're 2 minutes into the flight. We'd done that very same maneuver earlier in the flight, and we didn't have that problem. So it seems to be that it's part of one of those things where you have to be aware of where your battery is and how much voltage it can produce in order to spin your props up in order to keep that from happening. Because it never happened in any of my faster flights before, like, say, 2/3 of the flight was already done. And I've already shown it to you a few times. So that's something to be aware. I think, my opinion, to give it to you right here and now, this is a very good flat flyer. It feels good through the air. It cut through the wind pretty well. It handled the wind. I thought the video footage was very smooth, but it doesn't acro as well as some of the others do. That just seems to be one of the other deficiencies. Oh, and I shouldn't forget the lack of camera angle. If you like to fly acro with higher camera angle, also makes it a little bit more of a challenge. But we've come in for our bouncy landing. Battery is recovering well above 3.5 volts per cell. We got 305 on that flight. So again, I felt that the Beta FPV Lava battery 850 gave me the longest flight times, and it was more reliably the longer side, but that could be because I just haven't had these as long as the 850s, and the 850s, you've probably seen them in other reviews, and they've had more cycles through them. So those could be equal batteries as far as performance. But in this particular case, I definitely noticed a difference between these two. And how I do that is when I start the recording is I'll have at least 2 of one particular brand of battery, and I'll just stick it in front of the camera, and then I put a signal down for which number of the flights is 1, 2, and I'll do a little flashy thing, and then I do a sync clap so I can sync clap the recording on the quad to the recording, the flight audio, so I know what battery I'm running, I know which flight it is, and I can synchronize all those things. And then when I sit down and review footage, I can take those notes. But that's enough about batteries. Oh, I should plug this in. We've got little LED lights right here. Let me plug those in. They're red LED lights. So, oh, that's going to be annoying. Let me unplug that because I don't have my radio on. We've got those red LED lights, and that'd be pretty cool, like in a parking garage where it's kind of dim, where you could chase each other. So it's got that built in already, and relatively bright as far as I can tell. I don't really have a problem with the construction. You know, we've seen a lot of these quads in this sort of format, you know, with a carbon fiber frame, and then we have various plastics. The plastics have gotten so much better over the years, and we've seen so many of this particular format that the manufacturers have kind of honed in their plastic materials that are used so that they can just, they're probably all using similar stuff. It's just a matter of the design structure. And I should mention, this has kind of got, I would call it almost a rolled design structure in the plastic. You know, see how we have two layers, and then we've got the continuous hump between the two. And then, like I said earlier, there's two halves to this. We've got this as the bottom half, and then we've got this as the top half. Those pull apart, so you would get access to your VTX and stuff down here. It seems to be that would be the easiest way if you had to go about repairs, but of course you do have screws up top that you may need to gain access to if you've got to get to that particular side of the all-in-one. That should be the downside because it's got the USB port right up there. I do not know what this is for or here, so that is a bit of a mystery. I do appreciate the fact that you can see these screws. They're nice and flat. It does concern me a little bit because this is only, what did I say, 2 millimeters thick. And they've taken a little bit out in order to be able to get these screws nice and flat. I like that they're nice and flat. It's a nice look and feel. But it concerns me a little bit that, you know, we just have less material holding the motor. But again, we have prop protection. So even though, let's see, where'd my chewed up prop go? I have it over here. I kept it. So this was the main point of damage in that prop, if you can see that, these two blades right here. And that was that very first run when I still had plastic on the camera. This blade is turned over a little bit here. So I don't know if the prop protection bent in and caused, oh, I see this is got a curve too. If the prop protection bent in and caused this, or if it was the debris on the ground. It is inverted, so your props are kind of lower to the ground, and it was in kind of a rough, bushy area. So that was the first thing I did after I had that first run crash. But this prop did take a fair bit of damage, and the pitch is now off. So I wanted to make sure, especially for the slow cruisy flight, that I ran the spare props. Which it does come with a spare bag, if I didn't mention that in the quick specs. Pardon me. You know, when I had those a couple of crashes, I had some other crashes where maybe like I'd power loop and I'd like flop down on the ground. But our grass is, thankfully, our grass is nice and thick. It since we had the backyard redone, the grass is actually really nice to crash on because it is so much better than it was prior. You know, we had all that expensive sod laid and we're spending all the money on watering it. So it, you know, it's unless you nosedive directly down into the ground, it kind of lands like a pillow when it comes to landing in the grass in the backyard now. Even at this sort of weight, it doesn't sound like it comes down very hard. So I didn't think any of those were notable, and I didn't pull them out of my review footage in order to bring to the video. It does come with HGLRC. Let me see the version here. I need to capture an image of that. I just plugged it in, let Wi-Fi take over, and then I connected over Wi-Fi to put my passphrase on there. And let's see. The version of HGLRC that mine came with, by the way, it's the HGLRC Hermes HGLRC receiver, and it did come with firmware version 3.2.1. So it's not newest, but at least it wasn't 2 something. So you can easily bind it up to most of the radios that have been around now for a while. So if you made it all the way to the end, quick recap. There's not a lot of camera angle. It seems to be a friction fit because I just moved it with my fingers. It does the yaw washout when you dive, especially at the later part of your flight. Like say you get, as I've said a couple times during the flights, if you get 2/3 the way down with your flight and you do a fairly high dive, not, you know, extremely high, but for me it's the higher dives, it does wash out at that point in time where it won't earlier in the battery. Flies nice and smooth and flat. We get good stable video out of the O3 as well as the GoPro in 12 and 13 mile an hour winds, so not a big deal there. It tracks very well. As I said, it feels very grounded, and the prop noise is different. It's more of a whistle, and that whistle as I was flying it, I was kind of thinking that this whistle noise isn't as ear piercing as, say, like a tri-blade would be, and therefore it might not be as well heard from as far away as some three-bladed counterparts that we might have out there. The noise question comes up a lot. Of course, you could fly this inside. I took it for a pass inside. I didn't think there was anything noteworthy. I thought outside was more noteworthy because of the weather, the wind specifically that we were having, and its ability to get smooth footage in that particular wind. So I optioned to show that rather than the inside flight stuff. Looking at the HGLRC website, which is the only website I've looked at as far as pricing goes. If it's available at other websites, I'll link any websites where I can find this down in the video description below. Some may be affiliates, which don't cost you anything, but the channel makes a small commission based on those. Some of them won't be affiliates. If you run an FPV shop or you have a favorite FPV shop in the area that has this product or any product that I don't have linked in any product review videos, just let me know and I add them. It's not a big deal to me. But $3.99, which I guess it's a big chunk of change, but the 03, I can't remember the last time I looked at just the VTX and camera, how much it was costing, but in my mind, it's $250 alone, and then you've got the rest of the quad at another $150 essentially. Now, I know that manufacturers are getting discounts on those sorts of things, or I suspect they are because of mass purchasing, so it doesn't cost them that much, but yeah, these things are expensive, but you get really nice video out of it. They do have a analog version, so if you still fly analog, which I told someone the other day, I still fly 60% analog myself, even though I don't have to. I just enjoy the performance of analog. You can get this in analog. I believe, if I remember correctly, it was an 800 milliwatt VTX, so pretty powerful. I don't recall the camera they were using, though. But you can find that information at the link down in the video description on any of the product pages that I might have. Again, Patrick J. Clark for Project Mockingbird. I'll link the Facebook group if anybody's interested. It's primarily, I think, almost exclusively about Whoop PID tunes. But he's a longtime veteran, and I'm happy to see him back and posting again and working on various... He does more of a racing style Whoop PID tunes. So if you like to Whoop race, especially with Race Gal going on, might want to look that up. But if you have any comments, questions, suggestions, or otherwise on the HGLRC Talon, another 2-inch Cine Whoop, please let me know in the comments section below. I appreciate your time. Thanks for watching.